Good evening, afternoon, morning, whatever time it is. Hello. Hello. Everybody watching at 5 p.m., good evening. Everybody here, almost good afternoon. We got like 60 seconds till the afternoon. So I'm glad you're joining us today. Most of you know my wife and I do foster care. So getting foster kids, sometimes you get crazy things. We had this one kid, he came in, he's about 3 years old. We bring him in, we're feeding him dinner. He's doing pretty well. Then we get a phone call. And it's the foster agency, and they say, hey, you can't tell anyone that this kid is at your house. And we're like, yeah, we know about privacy rules, that's fine. They're like, no, you don't understand. A gang killed his father and told us they're going to find him and take him. Okay, now I'm a little nervous, right? I'm like, okay, I'm not telling anybody, don't worry. So we get them dinner, we get them fed and clothed and bathed and stuff. We put them in bed. The first night, if they're coming from a really difficult home, they just pass out. They're just out cold that first night. So he falls asleep fast. My wife and I finish our chores. We go to bed. And then about 2 or 3 in the morning, my phone rings. I wake up, look at it, caller ID. I don't recognize the number. What's going on? Say hello. A guy on the other end goes, where you at? And I was like, what? He goes, where you at? What, you ever heard of fight, flight, or freeze? I'm fight, okay? I'm fight. I'm like, look, I don't know who you think you are, man. And he goes, whoa, isn't this Greg? I was like, this is not Greg. He goes, oh, I'm sorry, I got the wrong number. Like, dude, that is not funny, right? I'll tell you one thing. Doing foster care has given me experiences that I never would have had before. But heck, like even having kids or babysitting kids, like just being around kids can give you experiences that kind of make your head spin sometimes. I'm just going to ask, if you ever like had kids or you've watched kids or just been, and they've done something that's kind of made you been like, what on earth? Just go ahead and say crazy. Crazy? Yeah, crazy, right? It just, look, I love kids. I love foster kids. Every foster kid that's come to my house has just been simply amazing in like every way. I love them all. They're strong people. But the reality is they were not raised most of the time. They were not raised in like super calm homes, given everything they need with consistent, healthy boundaries. That just doesn't happen all the time. And so what scientists have found is that these children's brains actually develop differently. Studies show that the type of attachment, I'm not going to go into what attachment is, but the type of attachment you get in the first 12 months of your life stays with you for the rest of your life and affects every relationship you have, unless we intervene. Now, some of you are thinking, why is Jeff talking to us about foster kids? Like, what's going on? Well, yesterday I spoke at a foster care event in Topeka, and this week I was praying about what to speak on here, because I always pray about what to preach on. And my assumption was we were just going to go to the next verse in the book of Philippians, because we've been in there for 13 weeks, just going verse by verse. So I'm like, okay, God, what do you want us to do? You want us to go to the next verse? And it's like, no, you don't? Well, you want us to go to the one after that? No. Well, how about the one after that, God? No. I'm like, well, good. Well, what am I supposed to speak on? And just kind of comes to me, it's like, that foster care event you're talking about in Topeka, I want you to share that with the church. And I get up and I walk around and go out and I tell Melissa, my administrator, I'm like, I don't know why I would do this. This doesn't make sense. Why would I share a foster care talk with our church? And then it hits me. What did we talk about last week? Do you remember? We talked about this. We talked about that we are supposed to not have separate minds from each other. We're supposed to work on getting along, and we're supposed to have the same mind. Actually, grab your Bibles and turn to Philippians 4. I just want to remind us what we looked at last week, because this is huge. Philippians 4, verses 2 and 3, page 953. Now, if you were here last week, or if you watched the sermon, this is going to make a lot more sense to you, what we talk about today, because this is kind of an addendum to last week's sermon. Now, if you're here for the first time, if you didn't see last week's, this is fine. This can be a standalone thing anyway, so you'll still learn something today that's really important about relationships. But I want you to look at what we did last week. Okay, Paul says, I plead with Euodia, that was a lady, and I plead with Syntyche, another lady, to be of the same mind. There's that phrase, same mind in the Lord. Yes, and I ask you, my true companion, okay, that's Paul's friend, help these women, since they have contended at my side in the cause of the gospel, along with Clement and the rest of my co-workers, whose names are in the book of life. So you have the one lady and the other lady, and they're not getting along with each other. They're having a problem. They're not of the same mind. They're disagreeing. And Paul says, please be of the same mind. They have relationship problems, and Paul wants them to fix it. Look at the next verse. Okay, actually jump to verse 5. He says, let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near. So you have these verses kind of sandwiching this idea of like, if there's relationship problems, you want to fix those relationship problems. You want to focus on one mind, working with each other. And then you have this gentleness idea. You want to get along with people. And you put these together. And what you have is, I should really work on getting along with people. I should really be gentle. And do you know what my foster care talk was basically about? How to work with people and be gentle with people, even when they're driving you nuts. So I'm like, God, I think I see what do you think you see what God is doing here? I think God is making an addendum to what we did last week. Let's just write down what we did last week. Okay, last week we said this: one mind, one mission. Don't be the one obstacle, be the physician. All right, we want to be the fixers of the relationships. We want to get in there. We want to bring people together. We want our minds to come together. We don't want to be on separate pages. We want to be working together. But we admitted that there are relationship problems, and you will bump into people at the church because we are human beings. And if you're a human being, you're going to have a relationship problem. Can I get an amen? Right? You're going to have a problem with someone at some point in time. And then I also realized about our church. Our church isn't like every other church. I started thinking about my talk in foster care and what a lot of those kids go through. Then I started to think about us here. You know what? Can I just prove my point? I want us here to think, and I'm going to ask you to raise your hand in just a minute, but if you've ever been a foster kid, have had a foster kid, are a foster kid, if you've been in an abusive relationship, if you've had trauma in your family, if you've had addiction, too many drugs or too much alcohol, or if you've had a relationship with someone in one of those situations, could you just raise your hand right now? Look at this. I think this is us, isn't it? When we're talking about how to help heal and deal with people who've been through trauma, we're talking about how to deal with our own church, aren't we? So this is important because God's saying, I want you guys to get along with each other. I want you to work together. Now, this wouldn't be true in every single church, but at Revolution Church, this is how we roll. We all got wounds, and we're just going to learn to deal with each other in our wounds. Right? When we deal with your family, this is going to apply to how you deal with your kids. This is how you're going to deal with your crazy mother-in-law. This is going to be everybody, but especially in our church. The question is, and let's write this down, how? How can I be a physician in a broken relationship and with hurting people? This is a tricky thing. I'm going to say this. This is the phrase that we're going to learn today. Stop, reflect, connect. Okay? I'm going to say it again. Stop, reflect, connect. Can you say that with me? Stop, reflect, connect. Okay, this time, and I know it's super cheesy, you're going to be like, this is really dumb, Jeff. But that's on the connect, I want you to just put your hand out like you're connecting. Okay, ready? Stop, reflect, connect. Okay, that's how we're going to remember what we're going to talk about today. And we're going to go through an acronym, CONNECT, that teaches us how to connect with people. See, we like to think that the reason people do stupid stuff is because they're jerks. Give me a nod if you know what I'm talking about, right? This is true. But it's not. And so when we talk about how to deal with people, we want to use stop, reflect, connect. First of all, we're going to stop our initial reaction, because usually when someone behaves badly, my initial reaction to them is bad. You know what I'm talking about? Like when my wife or my kids are driving me crazy, I'm not usually like, well, let's figure out what's going on and love each other a little more. I'm usually like, I'm going to burn the house down if you don't shut up, right? Like my initial reaction isn't always the right one. Some of you are like, me too, right? Then we're going to reflect. Consider what's happening inside the other person and myself. Okay, I'm going to stop freaking out. I'm going to pause my initial reaction. I want to reflect. I want to think about what's going on inside this person who's hurt me or is having a problem. And what's going on inside of me? Am I like offended? Am I angry? Am I wrestling right now? Or am I ready to talk to them? And then connect with them, which means make a meaningful relational connection. Basically, we want to know what is going on inside the brain of that person. Years ago, when I was a first-time foster parent, we got in this little boy, and he was like 3 years old, and he was disobeying badly. I was out at my in-laws' house, and it's just, he was pushing my buttons. He pushed every button that I had. Anyone ever push all your buttons? Just say yeah if that's ever happened to you. Yeah? Right. He pushed every one of my buttons, including buttons I didn't even know I had. I was done. I was like, oh, I can't spank foster kids. Oh yeah? You know what? That's why they misbehave. Like I was getting upset about it, right? And I decided I'm just gonna go ahead and spank this kid. I picked him up, I carried him to the hallway. I knew I wasn't supposed to, but I was done. So I carried him to the hallway, I put him over my knee, I pulled his diaper down and handful of poop. It was in my fingernails. I just looked up and was like, thank you, God. I understand, God. This isn't the right route. There has to be a better way. And I should have done stop, reflect, what's going on inside of me? Why are my buttons being pushed? Why am I getting so mad right now? Why aren't I okay with this? What's going on inside of him? I should have connected with him, made a relational connection with him instead of just freaking out. Now, in our church, when we have problems with each other, there's also a better way. I mean, we don't spank each other. Oh, that'd be weird. But we don't spank each other, but we sometimes get mad and judge other grown-ups, don't we? So there's got to be a better way than just spanking. By the way, I'm not always anti-spanking, but I think a lot of times, instead of defaulting to spanking, we should default to what we're going to talk about today. Okay, and there's got to be a better way than judging other people. Then I'm mad at you because you're an idiot. If we connect with people, this is important. Listen, if we connect with people, we can help heal them. We can help heal our relationship and even change their behavior and the direction of their life. You got me on this? You can change the direction of someone's life if you can connect with them meaningfully at the right moment. But if we don't do this, we'll continue to bang our head on the wall. Why are they so dumb? And we're going to be banging our heads on the wall, complaining about other people. Here's what we need to do if we don't want to be in that type of relationship. We got to start with see and connect, and it's cerebral. We need to think about how their brains work and what state our brains are into. And I want you to circle the word brains, right? The first brain, think about their brains. And then second brains, think about our brains. Okay, in this part of your brain right here is called, this is where the executive functions happen. I'm going to talk a little bit about executive functions. But basically, what happens is, when a baby's born, in its first year, it will cry tens of thousands upon tens of thousands of times. And if you're a parent, you're like, that's not true, it's millions. Right? But it will cry tens upon tens of thousands of times. And each of those times the baby cries, it is asking a question. Do you know that? Now here's why this is important, because you all are adults, but at one time you were a baby, and you have grown up. And these questions were answered for you in your first 12 months of life. Am I cared for when I call? Is someone coming or not? Do people hear me? Is the world safe or not? Can I trust people? If you feel like you can't trust people, it might have been because when you were little, you would cry and people didn't come most of the time or much of the time. Eventually, we learn things that are like consequences. If I cry, mom comes. If I cry like this, mom gives me milk. If I cry like this, she changes my diaper. And we learn cause and effect. We learn these relational interactions. And what happens is eventually you get older and you learn things like, if I throw this baseball through that window, the window will break. Mom will freak out and dad will be a gorilla. I shouldn't throw the ball through the window, right? You got this? So eventually you learn things like this, but if you were raised in a home where you didn't get the right type of attention, you actually don't learn this type of consequence. You don't learn this type of relational interaction. This is why all of us, have to stop and reflect. What's going on inside my cerebral, okay? When someone throws a ball through a window, why am I so mad? Is it because I don't have money to replace it? Okay, what can I do about that? Will yelling at them solve the problem? Okay, figure out what's going on inside you. Then, think about them. What's going on inside of them? You know, if when you were a baby, hopefully you were picked up and fed and loved and rocked and bounced and patted and shh, tens upon tens of thousands of times. And listen, do you know that bouncing in the baby actually releases chemicals in their brain? When you go shh, 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 like that releases serotonin in the baby's brain. But if we don't do this to the babies, they grow up as adults who don't have cortisol and don't have serotonin in their brain. They get more of a different chemical. Let's write this down. Instead of getting serotonin by being soothed, wounded people's brains often kick into overdrive and produce adrenaline. Can you imagine the difference between having, and some of you might feel this, the difference between having a chemical in your brain that calms you down versus a chemical that winds you up and freaks you out. This is why so many people have addiction behaviors, because you've got this adrenaline going, you have this stuff in your brain going all the time, and you're trying to fix it yourself from external stimuli that should have been given to you when you were a baby. When you grow up, when you get older, you can also get adrenaline instead of serotonin. For instance, vets have PTSD, right? They get things like this. And so this is huge. This is huge. Think about these kids. Instead of getting serotonin, they were given adrenaline in situations that aren't normal. We're supposed to get adrenaline. My son, Simeon, he was riding his four-wheeler. Some of you might remember this. I actually was driving my four-wheeler. I went over this really big hill. It was about like this. I just kind of rolled over it on my big four-wheeler. He saw it on his little four-wheeler, and he's just full throttle. I jumped and I'm like, stop, no, slow down, stop. Do you think he listened to me? Full throttle. He hits this thing. Boom! He launches, his head's back. He's flailing like this. His helmet's like rocking around. He's like up in the air, and about this point, I realize I'm a terrible dad. Right? I'm a terrible dad. And like, at that moment, we get adrenaline going, right? Like, I'm going to catch it. I didn't catch the four-wheeler, but we just get adrenaline going. We get super muscles, we get power, we get super strength. And I want you to understand something. When you have a kid who gets adrenaline instead of serotonin, and they grow up and they get a little bit older, something might freak them out that wouldn't normally freak us out, like a light turning off, click. All of a sudden, someone touching their back at the wrong time, not getting your food on time. Some of you adults are like, I know about that one. That ticks me off every time. But listen, sudden adrenaline makes your heart pump, makes your lungs do, you get all this air, all this oxygen. Your brain, actually what's interesting about this is your brain stops processing information very well. Memory? No. You can't access memory when your adrenaline's kicking, right? Like, you know the stories about like the mom who got a kid trapped under a crashed car and she has enough strength to lift the van, right? Her brain knows she doesn't need to access her memory right now, right? No mother is like, my child's trapped under a car, I'm gonna lift it up. Oh, I remember in 1987. Right? Because you don't need memories at that point. So you have no memory recall. Your brain's not focused on feelings. You don't have the ability to concentrate. It's all fight, flight, or freeze. You're either going to fight, you're going to run, or you're going to freeze. And all your power is going into your heart and your lungs and things like that. And I want you to imagine this as an adult. You confront this person about something. They know that you're a little upset. Like, hey, dude, we need to talk. What's going to happen in their brain? Is their brain going to release serotonin and be like, oh, good, an opportunity for me to grow? No. Their brain's going to go, squirt, adrenaline. They're going to be like, what's up, man? Well, you're the one who always mess with me. And you're going to be like, man, what is wrong with you? Because you're now getting adrenaline. And you ever had this type of conversation where instead of getting better, it got worse? And you're like, how did that get out of control? It got out of control because both your brains were like, squirt, adrenaline. And you act crazy when you get adrenaline. Right? That's why we need to think cerebral. What's going on in the head of the person I'm talking to? A lot of us here, we saw the hands go up, have brains that work differently. And as you get into a relationship with someone here or someone out there who has a brain that works a little bit differently, you cannot expect that person to react the way you'd expect a person with a 100% healthy brain to act. But healing starts with relationships, with connection. This is why you have to stop, reflect, and connect. What's going on in their cerebral? Well, a lot of times it's over alert. This is kind of what we've been talking about. You can write this down in your outlines. The O stands for over alert, right? The clinical term is hyper vigilant, right? They're over alert. They're just ready all the time. We had one kid who asked us for some food. My wife was cooking dinner. We were going to eat in just a few minutes. He said, can I have some food, Mom? She said, no, we're going to eat in 5 minutes. You know what this kid did? Jumped up on the couch where our dinner table is, started slamming himself into the corner going, no, you never feed us. You would let me starve to death. No. And my wife came over and said, honey, honey, you've had food every day. We've never missed a meal. Here's some food. He calmed down and then said, my other mommy didn't feed us. Don't you think his brain was working exactly as it was supposed to? Oh no, I'm not going to get food. Adrenaline. I'm over alert. I'm vigilant about these things. I recognize this is a bad situation. This is an emergency. I need to act. It's caused by the amygdala. Let's write this down. The amygdala is 2 almond-shaped groups of nuclei shown in research to perform a primary role in the processing of memory, decision-making, and emotional reactions, right? It's right here. The amygdala is this part of your brain. There's these 2 little almond-shaped things right here in your brain, okay? Now think about this. You got to confront someone who's messing up, who's doing wrong, and their amygdala is like firing off, and all of a sudden their memory's gone, their decision-making, no good, their emotional reactions, terrible. This is why we need to be aware that some people are over alert. I was at a McDonald's, had a foster kid. I'd had him in foster care. He'd gone back and he was visiting us. He was in the back of our van. This kid was hyper vigilant. I wasn't thinking about it at the time. We were in line at McDonald's. He said, can I have a pop? Sure, no problem. Ordered him a pop. Of course, that day, the line at McDonald's got extremely slow. And so I see him waiting, and he's rocking back and forth. I'm like, uh-oh, that's not good. Then he goes, I'm like, uh-oh. And he goes, I want my pop. Like, buddy, it's coming. I want my pop. Like, okay, we're going to come. Go McDonald's, come on, faster, right? It's like, I want my pop. And just as we got to the window, the lady opens it up. She's like, hi there. He goes, I want my effing pop. I'm like, hey. Best part was we had a Revolution Church sticker right on our window. I thought about just going with it. You should go to our effing church. What? Right? I mean, like, what do you do at that point, right? What I actually had to do, I was like really mad. You can imagine. But I have to stop. Don't take him out, throw him, kick him, right? Just hold on a minute. Reflect, what's going on inside of me? I'm really embarrassed that he would do that to me. But should I be more concerned about what's going on in him, or should I be more concerned about my being embarrassed? Okay, let's be concerned about him and then connect with him, okay? What's going on? Well, I should have realized that van was really hot. I should have turned the air conditioner up higher, right? That van was really loud. I should have turned the radio down. He needed more hydration. And so I should have given him more water before we left. Heck, I should have had water with me. Actually, this is a really big deal. If you're going to talk to someone about like a relationship problem, write this down. Here's a tip. Don't deal with relationship problems unless you have both eaten and have hydrated. Anyone in here ever been hangry? Right? Do not. I say it again, do not confront relationship problems or sins in people's lives when they're not eating and haven't hydrated. Like, I'm dead serious about this. You got to deal with someone, like, deal with it after lunch or dinner, not before lunch or before dinner. Bring some water with you if you want. I mean, anything, all these things actually calm the brain down, because blood sugar is a real thing. Hydration and food will calm the brain down. Let's say someone wants to come and talk to you about a relationship problem. They want to come to your house, and they're coming right now. You know what you could do? You could bake cookies. You could bake cookies. In my house, I make popcorn, right? That's what I do. Oh, yeah, you have a problem? Let's talk about it. First, let me crank up the popcorn popper, right? And this is real. It really helps. What we're trying to do is the NN on the acronym. Notice their needs, all right? Notice their needs. Give them a voice by paying attention to what they're asking for or sensing what they need and cannot express. Cannot express. All right, so let's think about a neglected kid for a minute, or an adult in an abusive relationship. They've never felt safe, maybe their whole life. They've gone hungry often. They're used to being abused or neglected. And a lot of times, because our brains aren't pumping out the right type of chemicals, we don't have access to the vocabulary we need to express ourselves. Have you ever been so angry, like you wanted to explain something, but you couldn't find the right words? Right? This happens. So we don't have the right vocabulary. We're used to abuse. We're used to people ignoring us. We're hungry. And then someone's feeling all these things, and then you come along. Hey, we got to talk. Oh, snap. or you got a problem to deal with if you're going to talk to someone when they're in that state. If you want to confront a sin in their life or deal with a relationship problem, maybe you should notice a need they have before you notice the problem. Let's say that again. Maybe you should notice the need they have before you notice the problem. Because here's the deal. Well, let me explain it this way. I knew a guy who was always in my bubble. Anyone here ever have someone that always violates their bubble? Oh my gosh, it's annoying, isn't it? Like, he just, everywhere I went, when I saw this guy, he'd walk up to me, hey, Jeff. I'm like, oh. You just wanted to like, hi, how are you? Right? Just a little bit more. Okay, how are you? But he wasn't. He was always like right here. Well, eventually I realized I should notice this guy's needs. I have a big family. I've got 320 kids. I'm getting touched all day long, whether I want it or not. This guy lived alone, and his family lived far, far away, and he didn't have any type of relationship with many people. It's possible he would go days without any human touch. Can you imagine that? And so I realized this. So the next time he got all up in my bubble, I just put my arm around him, and you know what he did? He put his arm around me and hugged me. Love you, man. And then he backed out of my bubble. What happened? I noticed his need. Instead of getting mad, I was able to stop, reflect on what's going on inside of him, give him what he needed that he didn't even realize he needed, and then he was okay. What if we connected with people in our church like that? What if people in our church felt like these people listen to me, they care about me, they know what I need, they listen to me? I mean, we all got issues. We saw the hands going up. Hey, just do me a favor real quick. Everybody at 5 p.m. too, just look at someone near you and just tell them you got issues. Just go ahead and tell them. Go ahead and tell, all right? But now, okay. That was good. I saw some people smiling. Hey, hon, you got issues. I saw someone else like, you got issues. Big ones, right? Like, now I want you to look at the same people, and I want you to tell them, but I want to notice what you need. Tell them that. Tell them that. I want to notice what you need. All right? So we all got issues, but could you imagine the power? Could you imagine the power, the healing power of someone not just noticing our issues, but noticing our needs and wanting to give us what we need, and that could heal our issues? Wouldn't that be powerful if our church was like that? Man. But there's an issue that we got to deal with, and it's called adulting. All right. The E on your outline stands for emotional age. We should deal with people's emotional age, not their chronological age. Here's a fact for you. When someone is abused or starts abusing someone, or if they start using and abusing alcohol or drugs, whenever this begins, they're often arrested in development at that emotional age. If you started drinking when you were 14, you might be a 14-year-old emotionally. If you were beaten when you were 3, you might be a 3-year-old emotionally. All right, this isn't judging you. I'm just telling you what's going on inside of all of us. And when you have to deal with someone, and have you ever felt like, you are 30, stop acting like you're 5? Have you ever felt like that? You know what? Maybe you're dealing with a 5-year-old emotionally. And instead of judging them for that, what if we notice their need and love them through that? What's a 5-year-old do when they don't get what they want? They get mad and they throw a fit, right? You see an adult who gets mad and throws a fit, don't just be like, man, grow up. They can't just grow up. They were wounded. So let's deal with them in a way that helps them heal, right? Hey, I love you. I want to connect with you. I want to notice your needs. Let's fulfill your needs. Man, you seem angry right now. How can I help you out of this, right? Let's deal with them like we would, not babyish, respect them as an adult, but deal with their emotions as you would a 5-year-old. You wouldn't just, when a 5-year-old was throwing a fit, kick them and yell at them to grow up and then walk away like they were an idiot. Don't do that to any adult either. Treat them as you would want to be treated. Basically, what it comes down to is C. Connection before correction. It's normal to want to correct poor behaviors, but from people from hard places, connection is more needed than correction. Can we say that part together? Connection is more needed than correction. Let's say it again. I want it even louder than that, okay? Connection is more needed than correction. This is huge. We should always put an emphasis on connection, even when they're acting out. Touch them. Give them your eyes. See their eyes. Give them your life. Connect with them before you correct with them. Now, a lot of you know my daughter, Aaliyah. My daughter, Macy. Okay, this is a year or two ago. Aaliyah was like maybe 9. Macy is maybe 4. And I was sitting out on her couch. I saw Aaliyah over in our dining area. She was just kind of standing there. And then Macy, the 4-year-old, goes running by, and Aaliyah just does this. Just pushes her. The 4-year-old goes flying. Lands. So what do? What happened in my brain? Adrenaline. Whoosh! Aaliyah! Now what happens in Aaliyah's brain? Even more adrenaline. And she goes, I didn't push her! Okay. I stopped. I reflected. Right now, she's just freaking out. And I know that when someone's freaking out, they can't process decision making. So I need her to calm down before I can even deal with this, right? So I go over to her, I kneel down, and she's just like, ah! I see the adrenaline squirting out her eyes, right? I'm like, I love you. She goes, she looks at me. I said, I saw you push her, but I still love you. And she just melts into me. Oh, I'm sorry, Daddy. Now, we dealt with the behavior, but we dealt with it later after we had connected. Do you see the power of connecting with someone before you just tell them how dumb they were? It's powerful. It's powerful. Here, let's go to T, okay? The T, a lot of this has to do with people expecting less or more out of a relationship. What we need to do is we need to try to say yes. Okay? There are few things better for someone from a hard place than a caring friend or parent who says yes. Okay, I mean, just give me a nod if you have ever been through a hard time and there's been a caring friend there for you and it just changed your world that they were there for you. Yeah? I mean, it can change your world when you got a caring friend. All right? Yes, I'll hang out with you. Yes, I'll wrestle on the floor with you, hopefully with a kid. Yes, I'll let you work on the car with me. Yes, you can. Look, there will be plenty of times to say no automatically, so work on saying yes more often. I'm not saying, I want to be clear on this, I'm not saying let your boundaries down, don't say no. You have to be able to say no, and you have to be able to say no at the right times and the right places. Give me a nod if you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, right? Someone's like, hey, baby, can you stay the night tonight? No, that's a boundary we don't cross. Hey, baby, let's move in together before we get married, right? It'll be a good practice for our marriage. Like, no, that's not a boundary God wants me to cross. Hey, can I just have $20? No, because I know what you're going to do with that $20, right? You got to have good boundaries. But when people are asking for us, hey, I need someone to talk. Yes. Hey, will you explain this Bible verse to me? Yes. Hey, can we come hang out? Yes, right? Let's give ourselves to these people. An appropriate yes can heal people. Let me say that again. An appropriate yes can heal people, especially when it's a yes to giving ourselves in relationship. Proverbs 17:17 says this, a friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for a time of adversity. We were made for this. We were made to say yes to people in their time of need. I want to answer some questions here. What if the other person doesn't want to connect? Okay, well, let's just think. You got adrenaline going. Do they want to connect right now? No, they want to kill you right now. Right? They very rarely want to connect. They're either fight, flight, or freeze. But what you're doing with this connection process is calming their brain down so that they can make rational decisions. Look, after their brain's calm, if they're making a rational decision and they don't want you around, then you can't help that, right? If they won't accept your help, then they won't. Then you just move on. That's fine. What is the differences between the mind, the spirit, and the brain? Oh, buddy. Your brain is the physical part inside your cranium. Your mind is what controls your physical brain. Your mind makes decisions, processes things. Your brain is the physical piece that catalogs, that routes things to the rest of your body, but your mind is the piece that makes the decisions. Remember a few weeks ago we said, if a doctor could open up your brain and put you on an operating table and take an electrode and touch it to your brain and your arm went, vroom, and then they said, why did you raise your arm? You might say, I didn't raise my arm, right? I didn't. It just did, right? Because you and your mind are different than your physical brain, right? Because just because your arm raised doesn't mean that you did it. Someone hit it with an electrical thing. So your mind is what makes the decisions. And your spirit is who you are. Your memories, your person, all of you is who you are. And that piece of you will never cease to exist, even though your body ceases to exist. If you want more explanation on that, go to truthrevolution.tv. That's our radio show. truthrevolution.tv, and type in spirit or soul, or you can type in Moreland, because we had Dr. J.P. Moreland on, Moreland, and he talked about it. He's super smart. He has big brain and mind. So are my boyfriend and I over alert when we end up bickering about directions when in a new place? Okay, so you're in a new town and you're fighting about which way to go. You might be over alert. So stop for a minute and pause, stop your emotional reaction, reflect. Why am I mad about this? Am I worried we're gonna drive off the end of a cliff? That might be rational. Stop, right? But am I just worried we're gonna be 5 minutes late? Maybe I don't need to scream about this. What does he need right now? Does he need to feel like he's the man and he knows where he's going even though he doesn't? Let's deal with that, right? Look, I'm a man. I will admit right now, I am terrible at directions. I not joking, I can get lost from church to my house in Salina. Not joking. And I'll drive around from street to street until I see one I recognize. And so my wife makes fun of me all the time. And just deal with it. All right. Someone says, what if they're fasting? Okay, so what if someone's on a spiritual fast? They're not eating for a purpose. If someone's on a spiritual fast, stay away. Yeah, don't confront them right now. Let them get done with their fast and then eat and then talk to them, right? This sounds a lot like the trauma care system from the ACE study done in the 90s. It's funny how Jesus tells us the answer to the studies we do before them. Yeah, actually, someone at one point took what Jesus, and they said, if you were to boil everything Jesus said in the Sermon on the Mount, which is Matthew 5-7, if you were to boil that if you were to take all the psychological textbooks we have and boil them down to their bare minimum, it would basically be Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. That right there is beautiful. If you want to read more about what I'm talking about, I haven't looked at that, but it's Karen Purvis, The Connected Child. There's also, there's a bunch of them. So the brain is hardware, mind is software, spirit is the memory space. Yeah, I wouldn't say spirit's just memory space. Spirit is also who you are. So your computer is a PC, or it is a Mac. And the specs might define some of that, but it's not. Now, I'm not going to get into philosophy right now. It'll take too long. All right. But if my mind is separate from my brain, why does the chemicals interfere with my decisions? Because you are a mind, body, soul unity. In Christianity, we've always believed that your soul and your mind and your body work together, not separately. So my mind and my soul might want to do something, but my brain not working right doesn't allow me to do that. This is why we're going to get new bodies when Jesus returns. And there'll be complete transparency between our soul and our mind and our body and what we're supposed to do, so that what we want to do is what we actually do. And it'll work out perfectly. All right, so let's get back to where we were. We were made to help people, right? And I know the problem is that you got a long to-do list. People call, hey, can you hang out? And you got a long to-do list. If your to-do list just sometimes seems too long, you got too much stuff going on in your life, just go ahead and say yeah. Yeah, right? I'm with you, right? It's just all this stuff going on, people wanting more of me all the time. I had a 10-year-old foster girl come in and she invited me to her tea party. Now, do I look like the kind of guy who goes to tea parties? They did that at first service too, and I was hoping you'd say no here. I guess you're all one mind against me. All right, so she invited me to her tea party, and I decided I'm really busy. I got a huge to-do list, but I'm going to go do this thing. I go in the basement. She's got the table set up nice, got the tea. I sit down in a little tiny chair, and we're drinking the tea, and she's like, finger up. I'm like, okay. I'm drinking it, this is great, and having a conversation. She's in a dress, and it's beautiful. And she goes upstairs after we run out because she's like, I'll get a refill. I'm like, great. When she's gone, I notice her to-do list. She had written a to-do list for the day. Number 1 was find a dress. Number 2 was put it on. Number 3 was do hair. And number 4 was show Jeff. And number 5 was play with Jeff. Guys, say yes because you are their to-do list. People need you. People need you. They need you on their to-do list. Even people, when they're having a hard time, they're acting out, they're misbehaving, they're angry, they need you. That's when they need you the most, isn't it? Say yes to people. If you connect with a child or an adult, someone in this church, when they're needing it, you can begin the process of healing. Healing. I just imagine what could happen if our church, instead of just being wounded and more wounded and calling each other out, we not only called each other out, we did so in the context of, I know what you need and I want to give it to you and I want to say yes to you. I want to love you and forgive you. Wouldn't that be an awesome thing? That's what we want our church to be, a healing place where, yeah, we call each other out because we want to be better, we want to know God, but we also do it in the context of, I know what you need and I'm going to give you myself to make sure you have it. Let's do this. Let's be these kind of people. Let's pray. Father, I just pray in Jesus' name that you help us to be able to notice what's going on in other people, be able to give them what they need, but also be able to reflect on ourselves, to be able to calm down, like, why am I angry here? God, just to help us to know how to treat people and have the presence of mind to do it. I pray that you build our church up with these awesome relationships in the name of Jesus. Amen. All right, let's go connect with people today. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening to Stop, Reflect, Connect. I'm really glad you took the time to increase your knowledge so that your brain will work better and you'll be able to deal with people who are in hard places better. There's something I want to bring out, though, and just make absolutely clear. We talked about this in the church service, but when we got to that connection before correction part, you got to know that that's what God did for us. Look, you and I have done wrong. We've sinned. I'm a sinner. You're a sinner. And God has all rights. He could totally come down and just, boom, be done with us. Just smash us and discipline us and get rid of us. But instead of wanting to just correct and punish, God sent Jesus Christ. He sent Jesus Christ to make a connection back to him. If you and I accept the forgiveness that Jesus offers, when you and I get into that relationship with Jesus, we have a connection back to God. It's a free forgiveness, free grace back to God. We don't have to do anything. He just steps down and makes a connection with us. This is exactly what we should be doing for other people. Instead of just wanting to correct their behavior, we want to step down and connect to them. So I hope today, if you haven't accepted the forgiveness that Jesus offers, that you'll accept that you'll connect with God on a whole new level. Let us know at Revolution Church if you've made that decision. It's really important. I want to send you some information if you've done that. Now remember to go, stop, reflect, and connect.